Welcome to the video on the design considerations, Azure AD, app roles and groups. In this video, I will talk about what are the app roles, what are the groups, and the area of strength and weakness of the both, and follow that with a brief demo where you can see how to basically use these. Now, the reason why we are having this conversation is because in my experience working with different customers, I came across this challenge where sometimes there's a confusion between using roles and groups, and there is some sort of like misunderstanding. So let's take a look into what are the app roles first. All right, so what we have over here is a Contoso Azure AD tenant. This tenant has 3 users and it has 2 applications. So it has sales and the HR Azure AD apps. What Azure AD app role provide you is a vehicle basically to define attributes to a particular application. And let's say that in this case we're talking about the sales app, so we wanted to use those attributes for permissions later on. So we will say, well, in the sales app we may need users with manager roles, and we also need users with the sales rep. So I'll just call it rep. So let's say we have 2 roles, and these roles are basically specific to the sales app. They have meaning within this app and not outside this app. Now if you take a look at the HR application, in the HR application we have something called, let's say, an admin, so HR admin. So we wanted to make sure that the users belong to that role who have admin level permissions. And then we have something like manager. Also the HR application may have manager. And again, this manager has nothing to do with the sales app manager. And finally, we can have, let's say, a reader can read the HR reports. Now, the question that comes to mind is, well, okay, we are defining this here, but what is the correlation between this and the user and the tenant? Well, the first thing to understand is, and I will change the color here, is the first thing to understand about the roles is that they are app specific. Sorry about my handwriting, but the stylus is tricky. So they are basically app specific. They're not shared between the application, which is a good thing, because the semantic meaning can be different of one role versus the other in a different application. It doesn't make sense to share them, and we will momentarily look into what other ways are there to share something between the app. Another thing is great about roles is when you assign them to the user. Actually, let's talk briefly about them, how we can assign them. So there are different ways to assign users. There's a direct way to assign user to a app role, and the way we do it is we take the user, and again I'm just drawing it here, we take the user Razi in this case, and we assign it to a role within the sales app. So this is the sales app, and you can do it through the portal or PowerShell. We'll look into the demo how to do it. And then you assign a manager here. So this is the direct assignment. The other way of assignment is that user belong to a group, and then we assign the group to a role. So we'll talk about that momentarily. When the user assignment is there and user get the JOT token, or let's say a token. So the token contains claims. So claims are basically the assertions, and when user assigned to the roles, you will get those roles. In this case, for the sales, we have the manager role, and it can be more than one. So the token actually will have claims, and we have the manager claim coming in. Now this is beneficial because the actual application, let's say a web app or an API or native application, that application, regardless of tools and technology, will receive a token, and it can use this piece of information to make decisions for the authorization and access control. So that's where the crux is, that you're sending these extra attributes for that application to make decisions. Now, just a side note here, that at the time of this recording, if you are using a SAML token format, then by default you won't get the roles within the claims. Right now this is only for the jar, so XAML actually not gonna get it. So the way you want to do it in that case is you will go ahead and query the Contoso tenant using Azure AD Graph API and basically get to the roles. And what are the other benefits of using the Azure app roles? The other benefit would be that once you remove the app, the roles also get removed. And the reason of this is that because there's a one-on-one relationship. So you have app and you have roles. So when you remove the app, the roles will be gone. So this is a good hygiene because you don't have to do extra steps. Now, keep in mind that you should not be creating like dozens and dozens of these roles. These are not meant for the fine-grained permission assignments. These are for the coarse-grained permission assignment. So you should be using a rule of thumb that less is more. Single digit number of app roles is good thing. So let's talk about groups. And groups in Azure Active Directory are defined at a tenant level. So that's something that make them available to all applications. So these are unlike roles, which are very specific to the app. These are shared across or among the apps. So in this case, let's say we have a group called admins, and you can think about them as like a super admins, and we can have Razi and Amy assigned to it. Now, as I was talking about assigning users to the app role, you can assign users to the groups. What you can also do is you can assign groups to the app role. And that really means is that, let's say we have admins. So I will just use this space right here. We have the admins and we assign this particular group to the app role manager, which is basically within the sales app. So rather than having these like users one-on-one mapping, you can have users assigned to the groups and then group assigned to the apps. So let's talk a little bit about the groups and what you get when you receive the token itself. So let's just look at some of those areas. So we have the token here. We get a token, and token have claims, and you do get the group claims. However, you do not get the name of the groups. So in the case of roles, you get the role names, but you get object IDs of these groups, so which is the unique ID of the group. So if you wanted to get to the actual name, then you have to basically query the directory, and you can use the graph API and you can receive the name of the group. Another thing to keep in mind is that you don't get all the group claims at the same time if user belong to a certain number of groups. So basically the way it works is that for the jar token there is a limit of 200 group claims, and for the XAML it's 150, and this is again both at the time of this recording. So the user belongs to more than these number of groups. What will happen is that you will get a extra claim called overage, and this means that your application will need to query again using the graph API to get the remaining group. So basically you will get the first 200 in the chart case, the first 150, and for the remaining ones you have to go and query. So it's that a step that you have to take. Now this is not necessarily a bad thing. Now remember that this all happens over the HTTP, and the HTTP header have the sizing limits. So if you have hundreds and hundreds of group assignment for a user, it's going to be just impact on the token size. So definitely, having a smaller token size and compact token sizes is important. Now another thing from a design aspect that keep in mind is that if you have a local AD, then you can sync the groups. Basically the way it works is that you can sync the tenant and the groups will be synced. So groups will be in sync. Now, this is a huge benefit, especially if you're looking at an organization with thousands of groups. So you can repurpose them right here. So there's a that angle to it too. So you don't have to work or create them from scratch.